Thank you for having me here, Dr. Grumbauer. It's a really pleasure to be here and to have an opportunity to talk about Montenegro on any occasion, because for such a small country as Montenegro it's very important to be as present as possible and at many places as possible, because small countries need to spread the word about themselves, since they do not have a great capacities as larger countries do. So I'm glad that I will talk to you about Montenegro and what is Montenegro today, where do we stand, and especially on our road towards the EU. But before I do that, as I told to Dr. Grumbauer, I would like to draw your attention to some period before 2006 and the independence referendum. It's only about 100 years or a little bit more, because I would like to do this in a way to talk a little bit about the time period between independence, actually, if you can say Montenegro from independence to independence. Because this is the year, as Dr. Grumbauer said, that we celebrate the 10th anniversary of regaining our independence, but this is also a year in which we celebrate the 1000th year of statehood. So, you know, it's a big jubilee. So we do need to draw attention to this period before just the referendum in 2006. So officially, Montenegro became an independent country in Berlin Congress in 1878, and it lived as an independent country for 30 years until 1918, when de facto lost its independence. So as it was before, in many cases it's today kind of a similar story. So you can draw the historical parallel between the times a long time ago and today. It's still the question of how small countries can pursue their foreign policies and achieve their goals in the arena which is dominated by the great powers at that time and great powers today. More or less, those are the same countries and the same players in some different, but mostly similar roles. And the Balkan being the place where many times the interests between East and West clashed, it was not easy to find its place and to secure your future the way that the independent countries do. So if you go back a little bit in history, you will find the same kind of language that was used. Is it the Eastern question, as it was the question what will happen to the Balkans after the Ottomans leave, or the Balkanized state of affairs, which should probably mean the problematic region which is always unstable. So in this constant fight for its place, smaller countries, especially, and Montenegro as well, try to be a part of something bigger, where they can actually, regardless of its size, being a player which would at least contribute to some larger policies. Well, if you see the European Union and why the European Union is so popular among the all Balkan countries, and if you see today, actually the membership in the European Union is the only thing that, the only true issue that binds together all the countries, because in most of them, if you see the polls, you will see that in high percentage the citizens would like to become the citizens of the European Union, and that their country. It's different when it's about some other questions, such as becoming a member of NATO or some other alliances. But the European Union is a perspective which is to which most of the Balkan people are in favor for. To go, we will just skip by all these years in which Montenegro was in a different state, in the different arrangements, political arrangements, from the kingdom, from being just a territory of the kingdom of the Serb, Croats and Slovenians, and then I would say regaining its uniqueness again within the Socialist Federative Republic of Yugoslavia until the 90s and the breakdown of the Tito's Yugoslavia, where Montenegro also had to be very cautious in a way to play securing its internal stability, but also trying to perceive its uniqueness, to protect its uniqueness, so preserve its uniqueness. And the way it was done is kind of unprecedented for the Balkans. Referendum on the May 21st is a result of a long process that started from the early 90s, and I would say that that process actually did what happened on that day, and that is that one country became again independent without any, in a peaceful and a democratic way, as much as it can be possible for our region. So it's a process that at least played for some 15-20 years, where Montenegro had to be patient but also persistent. And I would say that in many regards you can compare this period when the King Nicola, for example, was in exile in France between the 1918 until actually 1916 until 1921-22 when he died, and this period of Montenegro from 97, when Montenegro clearly started opposing Milosevic's policy, and then 2000 when Milosevic was gone, and then when the great powers or the big players at this time now again had some suspicions about if Montenegro can be rounded as one independent country which can survive in this neighborhood. So in 1918 we lost our independence. In 2006 we regained it, and that is actually when we could start talking with the Europeans the way we could, because we took the future in our own hands and we could not blame anyone else for our failures, if you would say. So, for example, after and this is now when I will start talking about the European Union, and in that part I have to go back again in the 90s with the process of stabilization and association. And that is when the European Union during the 90s tried to find the fitting long-term foreign policy strategy for the Balkans. Because de facto and geographically Balkans are the part of the European continent, there is no question about it. But politically it still was pretty far away, especially having in mind all regional problems that we faced at the time. And during the 90s, not only Bosnia, but the Kosovo, Fragile Macedonia, State Union of Serbia and Montenegro, which at the time we did not know how it will be resolved. So the process of stabilization and association that the European Union at the end of the 90s launched, actually in the May of 1999, when the European Commission suggested that the adoption of the long-term policy toward Balkans through this program, the biggest value of that was actually to give the Balkan countries European perspective, and to show them that their future is within the EU if they would know how to channel their future. The good example was Slovenia, of course, because Slovenia was almost there at that time. and the other countries followed. So during the early 2000s, and from 2000 till 2006, I would say, until the referendum, different combinations were tried to be reached in order to facilitate or to address the current situation, because de facto you had the two states who operated differently under one roof, which was the Serbia and Montenegro. I remember back at that time, and I started working in 2002, I was lucky enough to work in the cabinet of the Minister of Foreign Affairs, to be his personal assistant from 2004 until 2006. So I could see, I had the front row seat in seeing what was going on. You had one diplomacy, actually two diplomacies, with one Ministry of Foreign Affairs at the federal level, at the state union level, which was de facto the Serbian ministry, and you had the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Montenegro, which fought for the only cause, which was the rigging of the independence. In the same context, you can put the European perspective, because according to the association and negotiation process, and all the agendas that the European Union put in front of state union, besides the general requirements, which are the fight against the organized crime, the rule of law, and all these things that most of the Balkan countries lacked greatly. For Serbia was the cooperation with the tribunal in Hague, and Montenegro had no open issues with Hague. So they tried to come up with a twin track, double track, and of course it didn't work that well until the 2006 when we started cooperating with the EU one-on-one, basically. So I needed to say this part in order to to talk to you about the main topic, which is from the independence referendum to the EU accession. Now, concerning the policy of the European Union towards the Balkan states, before I turn to this one-on-one game that is still going on between Montenegro and the EU, I would say that this European perspective that the EU presented to the Balkan countries is something that this process makes alive. And the main characteristic of the process of association negotiation is that you have equal conditions for every country, and meaning that all of the countries have to fulfill same requirements if they want to be closer to the membership of the EU. And those questions, as I mentioned before, is of course the rule of law, building the democratic institutions, protection of the human rights and the minorities, regional cooperation as the key, and again on the top of that is the economic cooperation, or the building of the market economy, which all of these are preconditions for that one. But also, besides this equal preconditions for everyone, the individual approach is something which really matters, meaning that each of the country is unique on its way to the EU, and you have to address each country differently in the same manner, but respecting their independent approaches. And I remember that the big question at the time was, should the countries become or be part of the EU as one package deal, or so-called regatta principle, meaning that each country will be valued by its own progress. And we were always in the favor of the second one, which is because the process itself shows that is the only successful way to do it, unless you want to make political decisions. Those are completely different issues that can be addressed separately, meaning that political decisions are something else. It's whether you're going to bring one country to the EU or to any other union because of some political reasons, or because that country made real progress and is ready to be a part of something, in this case European Union. And I think that some previous examples, I don't want to go back to the membership of Bulgaria and Romania. I know that Bavarians have a kind of special impression about that themselves, but I believe in the process, and I believe that Montenegro should not become a member of the EU before it really is ready. If you look the figures, Montenegro is such a small country with less than 1 million people, 650,000, that it might be easily absorbed within the EU, but that's not the point. And I think that I want to bring this, the bottom line up, which is that it's not the question when we are going to become members of the EU. The question is, what are we going to do between today or between 2006 and the time when we really become a member of the EU? Because as we see this process, is not that we are becoming a member because of the EU. We are becoming a member because of ourselves. We are not doing internal reforms because of the EU only, but firstly because of ourselves. And once you reach this standard, which is the European standard, well, it's a question now, and I will talk about that as well. But when you reach this level, that is precondition to becoming an EU member, then it's less relevant. When are you going to become? Because you already have the standards which enables you to become a EU member at any time. So, but this is just to, the point is that I want to say it's not, the political decisions sometimes are not good. What is good is the process that leads to the decision. So if you go chronologically, and I can only go chronologically in this case because the whole EU process, and I'm not an expert on the EU, but you can quickly figure out that it's a pretty complicated back and forth procedures and the process. So the easiest way to follow that is chronologically. So I will just give you a brief overview of where do we stand now in our road towards the EU. So on the May 21st, 2006, we regained independence. It was 11% difference in favor of independence. It's 55.5. This also might be addressed in a different setting. Why it was exactly this by the EU actually? Why it was given the necessary percentage of 55? Why the majority was not 50 plus 1, but the 55 in our case. But there are some justifications for that as well. But nevertheless, after the May of 2006, pretty quickly this EU-Montenegro relationship became very, very dynamic. In October of 2006, we signed this, again, agreement on stabilization and association, but this time separately. We signed the first one as a part of Serbia and Montenegro in 2001. We did it again in 2007, but on our own. And in November of 2007, the first diplomatic representation of the EU was opened in Montenegro. So, delegation of European Commission opened its offices in Montenegro. In 2008, a year after that, Montenegro applied for the EU membership. And in November of 2009, the European Council made a decision which actually made a big influence for the regular citizens, and that was the visa liberalization. So when we talk about the EU processes for Montenegrins and what does it mean for the regular people in Montenegro, I have an impression that most of the people cannot follow the whole process. Of course, it's a very challenging process. It's a multi-layer process. Even if you are in the government as I am, I'm not aware of all of the aspects of this process. And you can imagine how hard it is for the citizens of Montenegro, for example. They know that the EU is something good and that we should become members of the EU. But I doubt that you would find a lot of knowledge if you asked what would that exactly mean in respect of, I don't know, any of these 33 chapters that we are negotiating with the EU. And it's not only for Montenegro, I believe it's for the Balkans as well. But when you give something concrete, then they feel what's the progress. Well, in this case, in 2009, it meant that the regular citizens of Montenegro could travel anywhere in Europe without visa. And if you have in mind that most of the people, at least my generation, and I'm born in '78, could not travel for the whole 90s and until 2009 without standing in the long lines, then you can imagine what kind of really not only visa but the freedom gave to the people, and that is the first sign for them of what meant to be Europeans. So in 2009, the visa liberalization came in power. In 2010, Montenegro was given the candidate country status by the European Council. On October 2011, the progress report was in favor of Montenegro. So, to cut it short, in 2012 we started the negotiations for the membership in the European Union, and we were the first country after Slovenia and Croatia to do that. Meaning that it showed, if nothing else, only that showed that our fight for independence was justified, because we really are, and as I speak, we are the front runner among the Western Balkan countries in regard of the European Union.